Hi, I'm Judah Arialway, host of Imagine Community, and today we're here with Randy Duque, who is the Deputy Director of the Philadelphia Commission on Human Relations. Randy, it is a pleasure to have you here today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Today we're going to talk a little bit about your past, what you're doing in your present, and of course, what's going on in the future.
Fair enough.
Sounds good. So, I mean, we've known each other for a long time. I even met your parents once at an event, I believe off of Broad Street for the Southeast Asian
yes,
community.
yeah.
So tell us a little bit about where you're from, your heritage, your cultural heritage, perhaps even your educational degrees, because I noticed you have a couple different degrees.
Sure.
It's a very non-traditional path.
Especially, I guess you could say, for an Asian American.
Mm-hmm.
But I was second child of Filipino immigrants, born and raised in Philly, grew up in the Aych section. Let's see, went to Catholic school all my life, went to Temple for my undergrad.
Right.
And
then you majored in...
That and anthropology, actually.
Yeah.
At the time, there was no real pre-med program, so I was a pre-bio track going for medical school, but I was really tired of studying about everything but humans, so I went anthropology and got interested in cultures. So that got me into, once I graduated, I actually decided to, first I started working in psychology, but I got burned out being a behavioral health person, wraparound, working with youths with behavioral issues.
Right.
So I ended up teaching English in Korea.
Of course, right?
Of course, what makes sense. I don't speak the language, or anything like that. At least not at the time I didn't.
Right.
But I was interested in culture, so it really brought, I guess you could say, my undergrad studies into play, teaching English in another country, learning and living in another culture, ethnic culture. My intent was to come back here and get a master's or a PhD and then go back there, but came back here, had to find a job. I was teaching English, and I was at this one place, and they were saying that, this is a great place to teach English, to people from other countries. It's a great place for people who are on their way out. In other words, it was a great place for people who are going to retire or freshly retired educators. They said, so they encouraged me to go back to school. That's when I decided to go back to school. I saw this great program under Temple's Allied Health program called Culture and Communication. Great, I'll apply.
Right.
Got accepted, went in to see the advisor. He's like, you got to, look great on paper, loved your stories and such. Application strong. Oh, but by the way, we don't have culture and communication. We have conflict and communication, however. I think you'd be good for that. So I ended up in the applied applied communication and conflict processes program.
That's how you ended up with that, because that's a really unusual title.
Yeah. So I mean, that's exactly what happened. But I happened to be in the transition year, so I was the last person to be in the graduate program of that major. So as they were transitioning to the Department of Psychological Studies and Education. So essentially I finished with that degree, but did a lot of work in also adult and organizational development. So I studied communication sciences, more like interpersonal communication.
Right. Nonviolent communication.
Things like that, yes, and conflict studies, and then also in adult and organizational development. So be able to develop trainings and develop and deliver trainings and such, which was all great. And then went back to my advisor. It's like, this is great and all, but what do I do with it?
Right.
So they suggested that I try to contact the local community mediation center, and that's how I started getting into this profession of, broadly I'd say, a conflict resolution specialist.
Wow, that's amazing. It's an amazing journey. You could always work at the UNs. Human conflict has been around for the past as long as humans have been in existence. That is one thing for sure. So there's definitely a career in that, because we're, amongst other humans, we tend to stir up some conflict, or we have challenges. So what are some of the tips that you could give? You now work for the City of Philadelphia on the Commission for Human Relations, and we see you at events all the time. Randy is the guy on the street. You'll normally see him, he'll be wearing his jacket with his button right here, and he'll be patrolling around using his Army ninja skills to make sure that everyone is safe, no matter what. It's the protesters, the police, the organizers, everybody on the street.
Well, let me give some backstory to how that comes about. First of all, the Commission on Human Relations, we're the city's agency that enforces the civil rights anti-discrimination laws. The Compliance Division works on employment and public accommodations discrimination cases.
Right.
My division is Community Relations, so essentially what we do is three things. One is peace building through bringing communities together, educate them on what we do, and also conducting workshops and conflict resolution and such. The other thing that we do is conflict management, so mediation. I have a small staff that works with police departments and other different community groups to respond to neighborhood conflicts as they occur, to help offer mediation or some kind of conflict mitigation process.
Wow.
And then the other part that you were talking about was protest monitoring, because one of the things that we used to do as an agency, especially early on in the city, is when police and community relations were really strained, especially during protests.
Absolutely.
The Commission on Human Relations would be that sort of neutral group to basically observe those interactions. These days, it's sort of the same thing, but the way currently the police department deploys during protests is more or less on the it's really on the less conflict side.
Right.
There's a lot more concern between people who are counter protesters or people who are walking by protests that I'm more concerned about. You know, as you've seen them during the DNC and great great feedback from, as they would call themselves, professional protesters on how the police deployed and during the operation. So my job was really to make sure that other community people would understand, protesting is part of First Amendment right.
It is.
To respect that. There's nothing against the law against that.
Right.
So a lot of the stuff that we do is basically the things that can be hateful, can be hurtful, but aren't criminal. And that's why a lot of times we work closely with police, because they deal with the law enforcement and criminal end.
Right.
We deal with the intangible, non-criminal, hateful things that can occur.
Right, such as discrimination that you had mentioned before.
Exactly.
Have you worked on any cases in regards to discrimination or experiencing discrimination yourself?
Oh yeah, plenty of on both accounts. Yeah, I would say, I'd say since working for the commission, I've been exposed to a lot of different communities. A lot of the discrimination would be more or less what we'd say these days is microaggressive acts or
microaggressions.
or implicit bias type of situations. Because as I always say, it's like I can't go without a week with at least hearing once, oh, where are you from? So there's that. Yeah. But I've also been on cases too where because some of the parties, I guess you could say, look like me. We'd have a request. Oh, can you get switched out with someone else? It's like, you know what? No, I'm a city professional. This is what we do. If you have a problem with what I look like, we need to have another discussion about that issue.
Right. I'm sorry to hear about that.
Yeah. So that's happened as well.
And what recourse do you have when that does happen to you?
To be honest, it really have to look at things strategically and what's better to help, because the driving force is what's going to resolve the conflict that be the best way possible. In that one instance, luckily, I guess in some ways there was a real out for me. There was a legitimate reason why I couldn't continue on, because something else popped up that needed my attention.
Okay.
So there was a legitimate reason to swap me out with someone else, rather than say, oh yeah, okay, you're right. Right. And then just let the bigotry go on.
Yes, no, of course. It's an unfortunate circumstance that may happen. Considering your background, do you have any tips for people that might be watching this video when something like that does happen to them?
I think in general, it's worth the time to sort of what we say is stop the conversation and meta-communicate. It's essentially what do you mean by that when you said that? Okay. You also have to pick and choose your battles too. I wouldn't say every single stop to do that, but there is a point where I think people would need to be checked on what they're saying and how they're saying it.
Sure, absolutely. For example, if it's a drunk guy on the street when you're getting on SEPTA, might not be the battle that you choose.
Yeah.
But if it's at work,
exactly.
Right.
Or or just if you have an extended dialogue with someone and you actually have that time, it might be worth trying to sort of. Ideally, what the idea is to try to get a person to look at it from your perspective.
That's key.
So, one of the things that I always teach in conflict management and conflict resolution is empathy, the idea of empathy and the idea of active listening. It's great to have debates, great to have differences of opinions.
Sure.
But it's important to be able to function through them and work through those by doing something like really listening to another person and trying to understand where they're coming from.
Sure. Absolutely. Which is one of the reasons why we're doing these stories, is because a lot of times people don't hear where we're coming from. People don't know what the situation is, and people don't have empathy because they've never met other people that might look like us.
Yeah.
Which is always fascinating. It's like, wow, there's this place called Chinatown. Or there's we're like 2/3 of the world's population, but that's okay. But always fascinating. Humans definitely keep everything running, which is great. One of the things that we also like to discuss too is, are there any other organizations that you're involved in that you think might need some additional help or some support?
Well, I would say that, Pennsylvania, in terms of the world of alternative dispute resolution, that's everything aside from going to court.
Right.
So you've got mediation, you have arbitration, you have facilitated dialogues, all these other great ways to help resolve differences. Pennsylvania has a good way, it's pretty much, I would say, forward in thinking in terms of looking at that through the alternative dispute resolution subcommittees and such, in terms of developing guidelines or statutes, etc.
Otherwise, keeping it out of the courts.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
There's a place for courts.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of leeway for trying to talk it out. And I think there's more power to it, in the sense that courts are inevitably win or lose. Being able to sit down and have a dialogue, it could turn out to be a win-win paradigm, or at the very least coming out to an understanding of why is it necessary to go this route versus that route, rather than just not ever talking and just making up my own assumptions.
Sure. It's a chance to have dialogue and to hash out what happens and what people can do in the future that might be of assistance and benefit both parties.
Yeah, and as such, there's a large national group called the Association for Conflict Resolution. I'm currently the board president of the local chapter.
Oh, congratulations.
Thanks. Although I've done my 2 years, so I'm on my way out.
Okay.
But I'll still be there.
New.
But we're looking for new people to become part of to join this group, especially if you're in the field or interested in the field of mediation, arbitration, such, because there are great minds there who practice arbitration, practice mediation and conflict resolution training, and it's a great way to network, great way to learn more about this field, and I would say that's something that I always say that to people who are interested in the work but don't know where to start. I'd say that's a great place to start meeting people.
And what's the website for that?
I would go to the national site. It's www.acrnet.org.
acrnet.org.
Okay, and again, so it's Association for Conflict Resolution net.org.
All right, that's www.acrnet, all one word, .org, and that's Association for Conflict Resolution. They're looking for a new local president, I heard. And do you have a business card? One of the last questions that we like to ask is, since you work for City of Philadelphia, what is your future vision of the City of Philadelphia? Or if you want, you can talk about Pennsylvania too.
I'll talk with Philly just because, I work mostly in Philadelphia. But I would say that my future vision is one where we are continuing to be at the forefront of being an inclusive, welcoming community. I think that Philadelphia does get a bad rap for being the angriest city or being
Eagles fans.
Yeah. However, I always say I think it's because we're more honest about how we're feeling. It doesn't. It's the way I look at it. Like it's conflict resolution. Like statistically, the more you teach conflict resolution in the schools and mediate, the higher it seems there's conflicts in the schools. The real reason is because people are using these channels that people are reporting when conflicts occur in the schools. Same thing here. I think it's just people are just more honest about how they're feeling and such. But I see Philadelphia as continuing to move forward in terms of being inclusive, being accepting, and of it being sort of, I guess, the Shangri-La, if you will, of community, of being one community.
Well, there you go. Can you blow that vision into your business card? And we're going to stick it in here.
Well,
Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love and sisterly affections, being the sanctuary city for everyone that is welcome indeed here. So thank you, Randy, for your time. We definitely appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And with that, please do check out www.acrnet.org, as well as that's www.phila.gov/
/human relations.
/human relations. If you have any questions, look for him.